This scene, captured by a security camera, went viral in hours. A ruthless millionaire known for his cutthroat deals arrives to collect overdue rent and finds a 7-year-old girl, alone, scrubbing the floor with an old brush. What happened after this discovery would forever change both their lives. Subscribe to the channel for heartwarming stories delivered daily. The mirrored skyscraper reflected the grey afternoon clouds as the millionaire adjusted the cuffs of his Italian shirt, bracing himself for another day of collections. His cold eyes scanned the delinquency reports like a predator sizing up its prey. 43 properties, 37 families behind on payments, just numbers in his mental spreadsheet. His secretary entered the office, her heels clicking on the polished marble floor. "Mr. Thompson, the property on Maple Street is 3 months overdue. The tenant disappeared 2 weeks ago." He didn't look up from his papers. "Initiate eviction proceedings. Notify the lawyers." "But sir, the neighbors reported activity at the house. Maybe she's returned." A glacial smile touched his lips. "Then it's time for a personal visit." The black Mercedes glided through the streets like a silent shadow. The millionaire watched hurried pedestrians through the tinted windows, ordinary people struggling to survive while he built empires. His childhood had taught him that weakness was punished, that feelings were luxuries the poor couldn't afford. This lesson, seared into his soul, had made him who he was, invincible, feared, alone. Meanwhile, 5 miles away, small, calloused hands dipped a brush into soapy water. The 7-year-old girl struggled with stains on the linoleum floor, her cleaning uniform, 3 sizes too big for her thin frame, slipping off her bony shoulders. The stained apron swayed with each determined movement. Her dark eyes, too, large for her thin face, focused on the task with a seriousness beyond her years. Her brown hair, poorly cut and tangled, stuck to the sweat on her forehead. Her hands, small and already marked by premature calluses, gripped the brush with desperate strength. "Mom always left everything sparkling," she murmured to herself, scrubbing a stubborn stain harder. "She'll be happy when she gets back." The empty refrigerator hadn't diminished her determination. The stained mattress on the floor of the bedroom hadn't erased her hope. The whispering neighbors hadn't broken her faith. Mom would come back. She had to. The sound of the Mercedes engine shattered the afternoon silence. The girl froze, brush suspended in the air. Heavy footsteps approached the front door. She knew that sound. It wasn't Mom's footsteps. Quickly, she wiped her hands on her apron and ran to the window. A man in a fancy suit climbed out of a car that shone brighter than anything she'd ever seen. Her heart raced. It was them, the people Mom feared, the collectors. The millionaire stopped in front of the peeling paint on the door. He checked. His Swiss watch, punctuality, was crucial in business. He knocked 3 times, with the precise force of someone accustomed to being obeyed instantly. Silence. He knocked again, harder. On the other side, he could hear furtive movement. A strange sense of familiarity washed over him, that hesitation, that palpable fear. He had felt it himself many times, decades ago as a child. The girl huddled behind the ripped sofa. Maybe, if she stayed very still, he would leave. It always worked before, but this time something was different. The footsteps didn't fade away. "Open the door," the millionaire said, his voice echoing through the wood. "I know someone's in there." The tone wasn't shouted, but it carried an authority that made the walls seem to shake. The girl closed her eyes, wishing for invisibility, wishing Mom would magically appear at the door. But reality prevailed, and when the millionaire decided to enter, the broken lock offered no resistance. 2 destinies met at the threshold of that dilapidated house. The millionaire pushed the door open, and the wood groaned in protest. The smell of cleaning products mixed with mildew assaulted his nostrils. His eyes, accustomed to luxury and perfection, needed a few seconds to process the scene before him. There she was, a child on her knees, still holding the brush like a pathetic shield. The cleaning uniform hanging from her skeletal body looked like a cruel costume. Her eyes, huge, frightened, but with a spark of determination, he immediately recognized, stared at him without blinking. For a moment the world stopped. Time rolled back 3 decades, and he saw himself, a boy alone, trying to clean vomit off the floor while his mother slept in a drunken stupor. The same defensive posture, the same despair disguised as courage. "Where's your mother?" The words came out softer than he intended. The girl swallowed hard, her small hands trembling imperceptibly. She's working. She'll be back soon." A lie. He recognized a desperate lie when he heard one. He'd told hundreds of them at that age. He looked around, the room cleaned, with obsessive perfection. But the worn furniture betrayed the poverty. Marks on the floor indicated where other furniture had been removed, probably sold. "How long has she been gone?" The girl's chin trembled, but she held her pose. "Since yesterday." Another lie. The deep circles under her eyes, the extreme thinness, the way she shrank away, everything screamed prolonged abandonment. He took a step into the house, and she recoiled instinctively. The movement hit him like a punch in the gut. How many times had he recoiled like that when social workers appeared at his door? "Are you hungry?" The question popped out unbidden. He didn't ask personal questions. He didn't get involved. It was against all his business rules and all his personal defenses. But here he was, looking at that child and seeing ghosts of the past. She shook her head vigorously, but her stomach betrayed her with a loud rumble. A blush crept up her cheeks. "When did you last eat?" "The day before yesterday." Yesterday. Her eyes filled with tears she tried to hide, wiping them quickly with her apron. The millionaire felt something stirring in his chest, a feeling he'd buried decades ago. He took out his cell phone. "Maria, cancel my afternoon appointments." "But sir, what about the meeting with the Japanese investors?" "Cancel it." He hung up before hearing further protest. The girl watched him with growing curiosity. He didn't seem like the menacing figure she had imagined anymore. There was something in his eyes, a shadow she recognized because she carried the same one. "What's your name?" She hesitated. Her mother always told her not to talk to strangers, but this man had asked if she was hungry. No one had asked that in weeks. "What's yours?" she retorted in a flash of courage that surprised even herself. A genuine smile, the first in years, touched the millionaire's lips. "Touché." He crouched down, getting to her level. "How about I grab some food and we can talk?" "But Mom said not to take anything from strangers." "Your mom's right." He paused. "But what if I eat some first, so you can see it's safe?" She considered the proposal, hunger battling caution. Hunger won. "Okay," she mumbled. While he dialed his favorite restaurant, ordering a full kid's meal, the girl kept cleaning. She didn't stop, as if the activity were a talisman against fear. "You don't have to keep cleaning," he said. "Yes, I do," she replied with conviction. Mom is proud when the house is clean. And in that moment, watching that frail girl struggling to keep hope alive through the only thing she knew how to do, the millionaire felt something inside him begin to crack, a fissure in the wall he had built around his heart. The food arrived. In half an hour, the millionaire watched the girl's eyes widen at the sight of the bags from the 5-star restaurant. The smell of roasted chicken and fresh vegetables filled the small room, a stark contrast to the reality of that place. She ate slowly, savoring each bite as if it were her last. He pretended to eat, but actually just watched. Her every movement awakened memories he preferred to keep buried. The way she held the fork, the way she looked at the food before putting it in her mouth, the silent gratitude that radiated from her. It all echoed his own childhood. "Is it good?" he asked, fighting the impulse to ask more personal questions. She nodded vigorously, her mouth too full to speak. A drop of sauce ran down her chin, and she quickly wiped it off with her apron, embarrassed. His phone rang. "Sir, the Japanese are inquiring about rescheduling, and Mr. Marcello is calling about today's evictions." "Later!" he snapped, hanging up abruptly. The girl stopped eating. "Did you come here to kick us out?" The direct question caught him off guard. He had come for exactly that. It was his job, his nature, his way of life. But looking at her, the words seemed stuck in his throat. "Your mother owes money," he said finally, honesty weighing more than diplomacy. "I know." She lowered her eyes to the plate. She cried at night talking about it. She said she'd take care of it. "And that's why she left?" "I don't know." Her voice was small, almost a whisper. "She said she was going to work and never came back." The millionaire felt his professional resolve wavering. There were rules, protocols, a reputation to maintain. He wasn't a social worker. He wasn't a savior. He was a ruthless businessman who had built an empire by being rational, cold, calculating. "Do you have any relatives? Someone who can take care of you?" She shook her head. "Just Mom." He stood up abruptly, walking to the window. Outside, life went on as usual. People working, children playing, the world spinning without caring about that personal tragedy, just as he always had. "Listen," he said, turning to her. "You can't stay here alone. I'm going to call social services." "No!" Her scream interrupted him. The child stood up so quickly that she knocked over the chair. "Please, no! I'll behave. I'll clean everything." "I won't make a mess." The tears she had held back for weeks finally exploded. She cried as if the world were ending, and maybe, for her, it was. "They'll take me away, and Mom won't find me when she comes back. Please, sir, I promise to be good." The desperate plea resonated in the millionaire's soul. How many times had he begged the same way? How many promises to be good had he made? To avoid being taken away? He approached slowly and, on an impulse he couldn't explain, knelt in front of her. His large hands, calloused by business, gently touched the child's fragile shoulders. "Hey, calm down. No one's taking you away today." "Promise?" The simple question carried the weight of the world. He knew he shouldn't promise. He knew he was crossing a line he had sworn never to cross again. But looking into those tear-filled eyes, he saw his own reflection from decades ago. "I promise." The rest of the afternoon passed in silence. He made discreet calls, cancelled meetings, invented excuses. Meanwhile, she went back to cleaning, but now with less desperation. His presence seemed to have calmed something inside her. As the sun began to set, he knew he should leave. Go back to his penthouse, his business, his structured and predictable life, but his feet seemed stuck to that obsessively clean floor. "I'll come back tomorrow," he said, the words coming out before he could censor them. Her eyes lit up. "Promise?" Again, that word. Promises were emotional contracts he didn't make, but he nodded. "I promise." The millionaire spent the entire night in his 3,000-square-foot penthouse, pacing back and forth. The view of the illuminated city couldn't distract him from the image of that child cleaning alone, trying to keep alive the hope of her mother's return. By 6 in the morning, he was already dressed and ready. Maria, his secretary, stared at him in surprise when he arrived at the office before sunrise. "Sir? Your first meeting isn't until 9. I need you to do some checking for me," he interrupted, handing her a paper with the girl's address. "Discreetly. Family history, social situation, background checks, everything you can find." "Does this have to do with the Maple Street property?" He hesitated. "Yes and no. Just do it." The hours crawled by until noon. When he finally arrived at the house, he found the door ajar. His heart raced. What if something had happened? What if someone had... "Hi!" a small voice greeted him. She was sitting on the front step with an old picture book in her hands. She had tried to arrange her hair in a crooked ponytail, and she wore a dress that, although visibly patched, was clean. "How are you today?" "Good," she lied. But this time he didn't challenge her. Instead, he sat down next to her on the concrete step. "What are you reading?" "I can't read very well," she admitted, embarrassed. "But the pictures are pretty. It's about a girl who lives in a castle." He picked up the book gently. It was an old edition of fairy tales, the pages yellowed, and some drawings colored with crayon. "Did your mum read to you?" "Sometimes, when she wasn't too tired." Her eyes gained a nostalgic glimmer. She did different voices for each character. "Would you like me to read?" Surprise crossed her face. "You would do that?" For the next 2 hours, the most feared man in the city's real estate sector read fairy tales to a 7-year-old girl. His voice, normally used to intimidate debtors and close multi-million-dollar deals, now narrated adventures of princesses and dragons. "The millionaire in the story isn't like you," she observed during the story of a miserly king. "How so? He only thinks about gold. You brought food and you're reading stories." The simple observation struck him deeply. It was true. For the past 20 years, he had only thought about profits, properties, expansion. When was the last time he had done something simply because it was good? The phone rang. Once again, Maria. "Sir, I got the information you asked for." "Speak." The woman's name is Rita Santos. History of depression, job loss 3 months ago, some problems with alcohol. The daughter is 7 years old, hasn't been enrolled in school for 2 months. And sir, Maria hesitated. "Continue." "The mother was found. She's been in St. Luke's psychiatric hospital for 2 weeks. Suicide attempt." The world spun. He looked at the girl, who was drawing with a crayon on a piece of paper, completely oblivious to the conversation that would determine her fate. "Can she have visitors?" "Not yet. Critical condition. Sir, there's something else. Child Protective Services has been contacted by the doctors. They're coming to pick up the child tomorrow." "Tomorrow?" His voice came out louder than he intended. The girl looked up. "Is everything okay?" He forced a smile. "Everything's fine. Keep drawing." To Maria, he said softly, "Find out which social worker is in charge of the case. I want to talk to her today. Sir, with all due respect, what are you planning to do?" It was a good question. What was he planning to do? 48 hours ago, he would have acted according to protocols. He would have let the authorities take care of the situation. He would have gone back to his business. But now, looking at that child who had spent weeks alone, keeping hope alive through the simple act of cleaning the house, he couldn't imagine just walking away. "I don't know yet," he admitted, "but I'm not going to let her be carted off like a package." The social worker arrived in the late afternoon, a middle-aged woman with a tired expression and a folder full of forms. The millionaire intercepted her before she reached the door. "Miss Castro, I'm the one who called earlier." She analyzed him from head to toe. The impeccable suit, the expensive watch, the posture of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Sir, I understand your concern, but this is a situation that requires professional intervention. The child needs to be placed in foster care while we look for relatives or a foster family." "What if I wanted to take responsibility for her?" The question took the woman by surprise. "Sir, are you married? Do you have experience with children? Have you had any training for foster care?" "No to all of those questions," he admitted. "But I have the resources to ensure she has everything she needs." "Money isn't everything, sir. A child needs emotional stability, proper care, education. All of that I can provide." Ms. Castro sighed. "I'll be direct. You're single with no experience with children, and you've apparently taken an interest in a minor in a vulnerable situation. From a legal standpoint, that raises red flags." The insinuation hit the millionaire like a slap. If you're implying that... I'm not implying anything. I'm saying that the protocol exists to protect children. Early tomorrow, she will be transferred to a foster home, where she will receive adequate care while the case is investigated. At that moment, the girl appeared in the doorway. She had obviously overheard part of the conversation. Her eyes darted between the two adults, trying to decipher what was happening. "Who is she?" she asked, approaching the millionaire instinctively. "I'm Ms. Castro. I came to talk about your situation." "What situation?" Fear began to color her voice. The millionaire knelt in front of her. "Remember when I said you wouldn't have to leave here?" She nodded, her chin trembling. "Well, maybe you can come stay with me for a while, in a safe place, where you won't have to worry about anything." "But what about Mom? How will she find me?" Ms. Castro gently intervened. "Honey, your mom can't take care of you right now. She's sick and needs treatment." The girl's world collapsed. She had spent weeks believing her mother would come back, that everything would go back to normal. Now, faced with the harsh reality, she began to cry, not the cry of fear from previous days, but a cry of deep grief. The millionaire took her in his arms without thinking. It was instinctive, natural, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. She clung to him like a lifeline. "I don't want to go away," she sobbed against his chest. "I don't want to stay with strangers." "Look at me," he said softly, pulling her back enough to see her eyes. "If you came to live with me, it wouldn't be with strangers. It would be with me, and I promise I would take care of you." "But you barely know me," Ms. Castro argued. "I know enough." His voice gained the firmness he used in the most important negotiations. "I know enough to know that she deserves more than being shuffled from foster home to foster home." "Sir, the adoption or guardianship process is complex. There are psychological evaluations, home visits, preparatory courses." "Then let's start today, now." The determination in his voice made the social worker reconsider. She observed the child, nestled in the man's arms, the way he held her, protective but gentle. "There's a possibility," she said finally. "Emergency temporary guardianship, but we would need quick evaluations, references, proof of income. Anything you need, you'll have in your hands tomorrow morning. And the social study will take a few weeks. We'll do it in one." Ms. Castro laughed involuntarily. "You seem to be a person who gets what he wants. When it's important." "Yes." He looked down at the child who had calmed down. She watched him with a mixture of hope and fear. "What do you think of the idea?" he asked her. "Can I take my toys?" "All of them." "And can I visit Mom when she gets better?" "Of course you can." She considered the proposal with the seriousness that only children can bring to important decisions. "Okay," she said finally, "but only if I can help clean your place too." And that was how the most ruthless man in the city found himself, promising a 7-year-old girl that she could help clean a 3-story penthouse. 2 days later, the millionaire sat in his office staring at a stack of documents that would change his life forever. Temporary guardianship papers, social evaluation forms, proof of income. But there was something else. A sealed envelope that Maria had placed discreetly on his desk. "What's this?" "It arrived by email an hour ago." "It's about the girl, sir. Medical records of the mother." He opened the envelope with hesitant fingers. Inside, medical history, psychiatric reports, and a birth certificate that made him swallow hard. Child's name, Ana Rita Santos. Mother's name, Rita Maria Santos. Father's name, Juan Carlos Mendonça. He read the name 3 times before the full impact hit him. Juan Carlos Mendonça, his father. His hands trembled as he picked up the phone. "Maria, I need an urgent family investigation. Name, Rita Maria Santos. Born in..." An hour later, he had the complete story before him. Rita had been a cleaning lady in one of his father's factories 8 years ago. The same father who had abandoned him at the age of 6. The same man who had built an empire and died alone, leaving everything to the son he had despised during childhood. Anna wasn't just an orphaned child. She was his sister. The world seemed to spin off its axis. All the coincidences now made terrible sense. The way he had instantly recognized her, the inexplicable urge to protect her, the immediate connection he had felt. His father had done to Rita exactly what he had done to his mother, a relationship that resulted in pregnancy, abandonment, and misery. The difference was that Rita had tried to raise her daughter alone, while his own mother had left him to fend for himself. Did he need to tell Anna? She didn't even know who her father was. To her, he was just the kind man who had appeared to save her. The phone rang. It was the private investigator he had hired to find more information about Rita. "Sir, there's something you need to know. The child's mother. She knew who you were." "How so?" "We found a diary in her hospital room. She mentioned several times that she recognized the name when she saw that the landlord of the building was a Mendonça. She knew that Anna had an older brother. The impact of this revelation was devastating. Rita had known. She had known that the man threatening her with eviction was her daughter's brother, and yet she had never tried to contact him. Out of pride, out of shame, out of fear. "There's more, sir. Rita left a letter for her daughter. The doctors thought she should receive it when she was ready. Bring it here now." Evening was falling when Anna arrived at the penthouse. Over the past 2 days, she had transitioned between her old home and this new world of luxury, trying to adapt. The millionaire had hired a temporary nanny, but Anna clearly preferred his company. "How was your day?" he asked, trying to sound normal despite the internal turmoil. "Miss Maria taught me how to use the tablet, and I made a drawing for you." She pulled a crumpled piece of paper from her pocket. It was a drawing of 2 people holding hands. "It's you and me." He looked at the drawing and felt his chest tighten. On the paper, she had written in crooked letters, "My new family." "Anna," he began, his voice deeper than usual, "I need to tell you something important." She looked at him with those big, trusting eyes, waiting. "Did you know that sometimes people can be related without knowing it?" "How come?" "Well, I found out today that we're more alike than we thought." He paused, finding the courage to continue. "Anna, we're siblings. You and I have the same father." The silence that followed was deafening. Anna processed the information with the peculiar seriousness of children. "Real siblings? Real. So you're not just my friend, you're my real family." "Yes." She threw herself into his arms with a surprising strength for her size. "I always wanted an older brother," she murmured against his chest. "Now I understand why I liked you from the first day." At that moment, embraced by the sister he didn't know he had, the millionaire understood that he hadn't just saved Anna, she had saved him too. The news broke the following morning. It wasn't an accident. Roger Bittencourt, the millionaire's former partner who had been removed from the business 2 years earlier for questionable practices, discovered the situation and decided to use it against him. The headline in the morning paper blared, "Ruthless. Millionaire adopts tenant's daughter to avoid fines for exploitation." The article was pure poison. It suggested that the adoption was a publicity stunt to clean up his image after decades of evicting families. It insinuated ulterior motives. It cited sources close, who questioned the sudden change in personality of the ice-hearted tycoon. Anna was still asleep when the phone began to ring incessantly. Reporters, lawyers, shareholders. The millionaire unplugged the phone from the wall and tried to stay calm. "Sir!" Maria burst into his penthouse, clearly disturbed. There's a news crew at the entrance to the building, and Dr. Bittencourt has scheduled a press conference for this afternoon. What does he want? He's contesting Anna's guardianship. He claims that you're mentally unstable, that the decision to adopt was impulsive and irresponsible. He's also hired an investigation firm to find flaws in the process. Can he do that? Legally, difficult, but he's creating tremendous public pressure. The company's stock is down 15% since morning. The millionaire felt the old fury rising. For years, Roger had tried to harm him. Now he was using Anna as a weapon. "Daddy Carlos?" The small voice interrupted him. Anna was standing in the doorway of the office in her pajamas, her hair tousled from sleep. She had started calling him Daddy Carlos after discovering they were siblings, a designation that always melted him. "What's happening? Why are people shouting downstairs?" Before he could answer, the phone rang again. He answered it abruptly. "It's Ms. Castro, sir. You need to come to the courthouse immediately. There's been a request for a review of the guardianship. The judge wants to see you today." Anna sensed the tension in the air. "Are they going to take me away?" "Nobody's taking you anywhere," he said, with a firmness he didn't feel. 2 hours later, they were at the courthouse. Anna waited in the hallway with Maria while he faced a judge clearly influenced by the media pressure. "Mr. Mendonça," the judge said, flipping through the documents. "This case has taken on proportions that deeply concern me. There are serious allegations about your motives for seeking guardianship of this child. With all due respect, Your Honor, my motivations are irrelevant. What matters is Anna's well-being. Well-being that is being questioned. You made this decision impulsively, without adequate preparation for parenthood, and now questions are arising about possible business relationships with the child's mother." "Anna is my sister," he interrupted. Silence filled the room. Until then, he had kept that information private, but there was no alternative. "I discovered it 3 days ago. We have the same father. I can prove it with DNA tests, if necessary." The judge adjusted his glasses. "Why didn't you mention this before?" "Because I didn't want it to seem like I was claiming rights over her based solely on genetics. I wanted to prove that I could take care of her regardless of blood ties. Even so," the magistrate continued, "there are serious issues being raised. Attorney Bittencourt has filed a petition arguing that you used your position of power to coerce a vulnerable mother." At that moment, the door to the room opened. Ms. Castro entered, looking agitated. "Your Honor, I apologize for the interruption, but there's something you need to know. The child's mother, Rita Santos, woke up from her coma today, and she wants to speak." The judge frowned. "Is she in a condition to testify?" "The doctors say yes, sir, and she insists on speaking about her daughter's guardianship." "Very well. The hearing is adjourned until tomorrow. Rita Santos's testimony will be fundamental to this decision." When they left the courthouse, Anna ran to him. "Daddy Carlos, did Mom wake up?" "Yes, honey. She's better." "Can I see her?" He looked at the reporters waiting outside, at the cameras pointed in their direction, at what had become a media circus. "We can," he said finally. "We're going to see her now." He was sure that the meeting with Rita would define everything. For better or worse, tomorrow he would know if he could keep Anna with him or lose her to the system that had once failed him. The psychiatric hospital smelled of disinfectant and despair. The millionaire held Anna's small hand as they walked through the white corridors. She had insisted on wearing the prettiest dress they had bought, wanting to be presentable for her. "Mother, will she still like me?" Anna asked, anxiety coloring her voice. "She always liked you. She's your mom." Rita was sitting on the edge of the bed, too thin, with deep circles under her eyes, but with a glimmer in her eyes that she hadn't had in months. When Anna entered the room, her face lit up and crumbled at the same time. "My baby," she whispered, opening her arms. Anna ran to her, and the two hugged as if trying to make up for all the weeks of separation in a single moment. Tears streamed down both of their faces. The millionaire remained at the door, watching. Rita then noticed him, and her eyes filled with a complex expression: gratitude, shame, relief. "You took care of her," she said, standing up slowly, "as anyone would have." "No, not just anyone." Rita shook her head. "I knew who you were from the first day I signed the lease." Anna looked between the two, confused. "You already knew each other?" Rita knelt in front of her daughter. "Anna, remember when I used to tell you stories about princes and princesses?" The girl nodded. "Well, sometimes life is like a fairy tale, but the strange kind. This man," she pointed to the millionaire, "is your brother, for real." "I know, Mom, he told me. We have the same daddy." Rita smiled through tears. "And what do you think of that?" "I think it's the best thing that's happened to me since you got sick." The millionaire felt a lump in his throat. Rita approached him, studying his face. "You have his eyes, your father's. I've never been told that. João was complicated, but you did what he never did. You took care of your family." They talked for 2 hours. Rita told about how she had recognized the Mendonça surname, about how she had worked for their father, about how she had fallen in love with a man who promised the world and disappeared when she got pregnant. "I wanted to tell you about Anna," she said, "but I was so scared that you would think I wanted money, that I was trying to blackmail or manipulate you. And why didn't you tell me now, when I showed up at your house? Because I was too sick to think straight, and because I saw how you looked at her that first day, the same way I looked, with instant love." The millionaire's phone rang. It was his lawyer. "Sir, Bittencourt's press conference was a disaster for him. The stock has recovered, but more importantly, the interview that Rita gave to the doctors today is being transcribed. She wants you to have permanent guardianship of Anna. Can she decide that? As the biological mother, her opinion carries full weight. But there's more. We have evidence that Bittencourt tried to bribe the social worker to force the child's removal. He's being investigated." When he finished the call, Rita was humming a lullaby to Anna, who had fallen asleep in her lap. "I can't take care of her now," Rita said softly. "Maybe I'll never be able to be the mother she deserves again. But you're already the brother she always needed. Rita, you're going to be okay. With treatment, therapy, maybe. But she needs stability now. She needs someone who loves her unconditionally and who has the resources to take care of her. She needs you." She stood up delicately, without waking Anna, and placed her in her brother's arms. "I'll sign all the papers you need. I'll testify in favor of your guardianship, because I know you're not doing this out of pity or pressure, you're doing it out of love." At that moment, watching Anna sleeping in his arms, while Rita organized the papers that would change their lives forever, the millionaire knew he had found his true purpose. From now on, he would be a family man. The final hearing took place on a Tuesday morning, under the feverish gaze of the press. The courtroom was packed. Roger Bittencourt, with his team of expensive lawyers, occupied one side of the room. On the other, the millionaire, alongside his lawyer and Ms. Castro. Rita, fragile but determined, was ready to testify. Anna waited in an adjoining room, drawing to avoid thinking about the anxiety. The judge entered, and silence fell over the room. "We are here to decide on the definitive guardianship of the minor Ana Rita Santos. As everyone knows, this case has gained unusual public proportions, but our decision will be based solely on the best interest of the child." Bittencourt stood up first, tall, imposing, with decades of experience in manipulating juries and judges. "Your Honor, I come to defend the rights of a vulnerable child against a man who for years has destroyed homes without any remorse. This same man now wants to convince us that he's changed overnight. Please, this is marketing, manipulation of public opinion. He presented documents, a history of evictions, testimonies from former tenants. He painted a portrait of a cruel man using a child to rehabilitate his image. How can we entrust the future of a little girl to someone who has made a career out of destroying families? When he finished, the millionaire's lawyer stood up. Younger, less experienced in courtroom theatrics, but armed with the truth. Your Honor, my client doesn't deny his past, but people can change, and the proof of that change isn't in the documents, it's in what happened when he met Anna. He presented the evidence, the daily visits to her house, the medical care provided, the education, the affection shown, but mostly the revelation of their siblinghood. This isn't a case of adoption by strangers. It's a brother taking responsibility for his sister, a brother who, seeing her alone and vulnerable, recognized in her a piece of himself. Then it was Rita's turn. She walked slowly to the podium, her hands trembling slightly. Your Honor, I'm not a perfect mother. I failed to protect my daughter when she needed me most, but I know how to recognize love when I see it. Her voice gained strength as she continued. In the last 2 months, I've watched my daughter be transformed, not just with new clothes or toys. She has hope again. She smiles. She feels safe. And that didn't happen because he has money. It happened because he loves her. Rita looked directly at Bittencourt. This man tried to bribe me last week, offered me money to testify against my daughter's brother. He doesn't care about Anna. He just wants to destroy an enemy. A murmur ran through the room. Bittencourt paled. I ask that you allow my daughter to stay with her brother. Because if there's one thing I've learned in this life, it's that family isn't just about blood. It's about being there when we need each other most. The judge called Anna to testify. The girl entered the room, tiny amid so much formalism, but walking with the determination she had inherited from her mother and brother. Anna, the judge said gently, do you understand why we're all here? Yes, sir. To decide who I'm going to live with. And who would you like to live with? She looked at Rita, then at the millionaire, then at the judge. I want to live with my brother, but I also want to visit my mom whenever she's better. Why do you want to live with your brother? Anna thought for a moment with the seriousness of children. Because he taught me that cleaning can just be playing house. Because he reads stories with funny voices. Because when I have nightmares at night, he sits on my bed until I fall asleep. She paused. And because he looks at me the same way Mom used to, like I'm the most important thing in the world. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of the judge scribbling on his papers. Having heard all the testimonies and analyzed the evidence, I declare that permanent guardianship of Ana Rita Santos is granted to her brother. The gavel banged on the table, sealing not only a legal decision, but a family. Anna ran into her, her brother's arms, and Rita smiled through tears. On the other side of the room, Bittencourt left frustrated, his revenge thwarted. The family had won. 6 months later, the penthouse had changed completely. Where once reigned the icy silence of impersonal luxury, now echoed laughter, cartoon theme songs, and the sound of little feet running through the marble corridors. The millionaire was in his office, no longer holed up until midnight closing deals, but helping Anna with her homework. She was enrolled in the best private school in the city, but what she liked most were the extra lessons with her brother. Daddy. Carlos, I can't do this problem, she murmured, frustrated with the math. Let's try again, slowly. The patience surprised even him. Who would have thought that the man who made CEOs tremble in meetings would be here, explaining for the 50th time how to add fractions? Maria entered the room with a stack of documents. "Sir, the foundation contracts are ready for signing." It was another new project. 3 months ago, he had created the United Siblings Foundation, dedicated to helping children in situations of abandonment. Half of his profits were now earmarked for the project. His shareholders grumbled, but the results spoke for themselves. A company with purpose generated more loyalty from both employees and customers. "Anna, would you like to join me on the visit to the foundation today?" Her eyes lit up. "Can I help paint the new room?" "Of course you can." She had become the unofficial mascot of the foundation, always present at inaugurations and events. The children assisted loved talking to her, hearing her stories about what it was like to live in a castle, as she called the penthouse, and how she had found a new family. The phone rang. It was Rita. "Hi, my love," she said to Anna, who ran to answer. "How was school today?" The daily conversations with her mother had become a sacred ritual. Rita was much better, undergoing therapy regularly and volunteering at a rehabilitation center. The relationship between her and the millionaire had evolved into something neither of them expected: genuine friendship. "Mom, are we going to visit you on Sunday? Daddy Carlos said we can have a picnic in the park." "Of course, honey. I'll make those sandwiches you like." The weekend visits had become a tradition. Ina transitioned between the two worlds with impressive ease. The luxurious penthouse during the week, the simple afternoons with her mother on weekends. That night, after dinner, Anna asked to read a story to her brother. A reversal of roles. That amused him. She chose a book about a princess who saved the kingdom. "Daddy Carlos," she said when she finished, "do you think we're like the characters in the stories?" "How so?" "You were like the sad king in the beginning, who had everything but didn't have love, and I was like the lost princess." He was impressed by her insight. "And now we're like the siblings who find each other at the end of the good stories, the ones who live happily ever after." Before going to sleep, she insisted on putting away her toys alone. Among them was the old brush, the one she used to clean the house when she lived alone. He had offered to throw it away several times, but she always refused. "Why do you keep that, Anna?" "Because it reminds me where I came from, and it reminds me that sometimes bad things happen to lead us to good things." Later, alone in his office, the millionaire looked out the window at the city he had conquered through fear and ruthlessness. Now, he saw the same city as a place full of families, stories, people who deserved chances. He picked up the phone and called Maria. "Tomorrow, I want a meeting with the entire board of directors. We need to revise our policy for assisting tenants in difficulty." "Sir, we're going to create a support program for families in vulnerable situations. And I want it to be much more than charity. I want it to be a real commitment." In the mirror of the office, he saw his reflection. The man who looked back was still successful, still determined, but now he was also a brother, almost. A father, protector of a girl who had taught him that love isn't weakness. It's the only force that really matters. On the desk next to the computer was the photo that Anna had taken of them on the day of the official adoption. 2 huge smiles, embraced, an unlikely but perfect family. And in the corner of the photo, almost imperceptible, was Anna's old brush, a reminder that sometimes the most beautiful stories begin in the most improbable places. If this story touched you, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to receive new stories every day. What would you do in the millionaire's place? Comment below and share this story with someone special.